So every year, throughout the year, there are tons of visitors, families, and students that come to Texas A&M University to come and see all the cool, significant locations that we have, and just to see how beautiful the campus is in general. This enormous campus is 5,200 acres large, and it has tons of stuff to offer for all those visitors and families. Like, for example, when you go to North Campus, you have the Zachary Engineering Building. Whenever you go to Central Campus, you have the MSC and Rudder Tower. And whenever you go to West Campus, you have the very famous George Bush Memorial Museum. With all these cool and really awesome places to go and visit, there's really one big issue that rises. There's a really hard time finding a place to park because there's so many people and all the visitor parking spaces are taken. Now, this issue mainly comes from three reasons. So the very first reason is the fact that there are very abstract locations on campus to park if you don't park in a parking garage. Number two, the fact there are very few timed parking areas on campus. And number three, the fact that West Campus barely has any hourly visiting parking during the weekdays. So starting off, we're going to begin talking about how abstract these parking areas are and how it's a really bad thing as of right now. So for example, whenever we have visitor parking, and whenever you're not in a parking garage on the weekdays, there's only two main places on campus you can actually park. So the very first one is going to be the golf course on the very east side of the university near the Commons and near the Quad. The golf course is a pretty decent location to park at if you go and play golf. But if you want to go to another site on campus, like for example main campus or even North Campus, it's a pretty far walk and it's a pretty weird route just to go and see all that kind of stuff. It's about a mile away from that. It's about a mile away from the MSC, and from Rudder it's about a mile and a half away from Reed. That's a pretty far distance away. The second area is in lot 100 over there at Reed Arena. So over there at Reed Arena, you go for basketball games and baseball games and stuff like that. However, whenever you go to tour around the campus, it's pretty far away from the MSC and Rudder in general. It's about maybe 3/4 of a mile away. That's a pretty far distance, especially if you're disabled or if you have a bunch of little kids with you. And also, it's pretty far away from the really cool attractions on main campus too. So the fact that if you don't park in a parking garage, you have to park in all these abstract spots, you're very far away from a bunch of different places on campus. And that's a very bad issue whenever it comes to this problem. So moving on from this issue, we're going to begin talking about why there's not enough 30-minute time parking spaces on campus either. So personally, from my experience, whenever I was in the Corps Cadets, it was very difficult for us to move in, mainly because there were very few 30-minute time parking spaces for us just to go and unload our stuff and just leave and go do what we had to do. A lot of people would go and park on the streets and clog up those streets because that was the only place you could park. Well, because near our area, we only had lot 20 or lot 26, and we only had lot 40. Lot 40 times parking spaces, there were maybe about just 8 or 9 of them for all the Corps Cadet guys on move-in day. That's a pretty bad issue, especially whenever you have people near the Commons too, where it's just a straight shot down that long road along Bizzle, and you just have people and cars parked throughout the whole road. It gets clogged up and it's pretty bad. And there's not a lot of parking, especially for whenever it comes to move-in day. Another case is whenever you go on Main or North Campus, they only have approximately 25 spaces throughout that entire area. Main campus alone only has 2. So I think if you're a visitor and you want to try just go somewhere for 30 minutes or something like that, it's going to be very hard, especially if you're going to go on main campus or if you're trying to go near the Quad or anything like that. It's going to be a very hard time trying to go to a 30-minute time parking space. And this is a really big significant issue when it comes to how bad parking is on campus. So moving on from time parking spaces, now we're going to talk about how West Campus lacks all these hourly visiting parking. So for example, on the weekdays, you can't park at George Bush Library because there's a lot of classes going on. Even if you want to go to the museum, you have to go pay for one of those 5 pay spots. Now, if you have a group of people or something like that, that's going to be very difficult, especially whenever you only have a few spaces. The next area is going to be the Weiner Building, and the Weiner Building is the closest public lot to Research Park. It's closer than George Bush by about 3/10 of a mile, but it's still considerable distance, seeing that Weiner Building is still an hour away, or not an hour, but a mile away from Research Park. That's a really long walk. The next place is going to be the general service complex. That's where students and visitors go and usually try to get some more information when it comes to just your general service throughout the university. This building is about 1 mile away from the Lantern building, and that's the nearest visitor parking area that's kind of a large area for most people. It's very spread out on West Campus, and if you want to get anywhere on West Campus, you have to walk quite a considerable distance for you to get to where you have to go. And I think the fact that West Campus is kind of barren when it comes to these hourly visitor parking is a pretty big problem, especially with this parking issue. So even though that we have all these really cool areas on campus, and you have all these students, families, and visitors come, and they have a really good time whenever they start doing these things, the biggest problem that we currently have is just trying to find a place to park and expand our parking throughout the university. And this is mainly due to the fact that we have very abstract locations to park if you don't want to park in a parking garage. To the fact that we have very few time parking areas and very few time spaces for us just to go in and out into a building. Number three, the fact that West Campus is very barren whenever it comes to parking locations and hourly visiting parkings. Thank you.